Welcome back to Dubbzi Bricks for another episode of building the Tantive in Lego. And here we have our playset version of the Tantive. And so far we've been working on this section just here. And we know that this part here is 30 studs in width. So it's enabling us now to start working on the other parts and working out the actual size of it. And the engines here, this is what we will be working on. Now I am getting very low on parts, and one part I need a lot of are these here. The 16x1 Technic brick, either that or 14x1s. I thought I was going to need about another 200 of these. However, after calculating roughly the engine size, I think it's actually going to be more like 900 of them that I'm going to need. So I looked on lego.com and they were working out at 80, I think it was 84 or 86 cents each for these. So yeah, that's a lot of money. Or I could get them from the Lego factory at the end of April. And if I got them from there, I think they work out at 47 cents each. The other option is there is a store in Germany on Bricklink, or a couple of stores. They're selling the 14 long ones for about 36 cents each. So that would be a much cheaper option, and also means I would be able to get them that much quicker, hopefully, as well. So I just need to work out exactly how many I need and then get those all ordered in. Now, in regards to the engines, on the set here, they're just kept in by a couple of Technic pins. Now, I wouldn't be able to do that with the larger version because they're going to be so heavy, and the engines at the bottom, they just would not have enough connection power to keep them all in place. So I need to work out exactly how the engines are going to be attached to the actual ship itself. So I've made this little mock here just to give you an idea of what I'm thinking at the moment. I have the display stand built into the bottom two engines. I would then have two arms coming out, one either side, and the engine would then slide onto that. I would then have a connection point going through the engine that I'll clip it into place on there. So you then have your four engines on the bottom, and then the next engines would just stack on top and again would be clipped into place. So I'm not sure if that's going to work. It's just the first thought I've had so far. So we'll have a think about it some more before we get to the end. But first of all, I'm just going to remeasure all of the engine here, and yeah, we're going to make a frame up for it just to see how big it's going to be. And I really don't know what to say about these engines. They are gigantic, and we're going to have to come up with some serious structural engineering here just to make this thing all stay together in one piece and not droop. They are so big. Here is the playset engine, and just to give you an idea of size comparison, and this part just here is what we're working on, but yeah, it is massive. The height of this is 21 bricks in height, and lengthwise I think we're at 64 studs just for this particular part. So that's equivalent to two of the normal base plates. So yeah, it's coming on. There's a couple of connections I need to work on. This beam here I've connected together, but it's pulling all those support beams forward by just a fraction. And we're probably talking about 1/6 of a stud, if that. But yeah, so that needs to be disconnected. We're going to have to find a new way of connecting that together. But it's just to give you an idea of the size. Now, I did originally build it and I thought this doesn't look right, and it was because I hadn't got the front bit here high enough, but now it's all starting to come together. What I'm going to be concentrating on now is working out exactly how I'm going to go about building this properly. I've just used any bricks possible, i.e. the 2x2s, just get it all together, but I need to have the section coming out of the back here that's going to actually support the actual engine part here itself. This is going to be very, very heavy, so I need to make sure it doesn't sag, doesn't drop down at all. So I'm going to have to put some good cross beams in there. And I'll look at bridge supports, the style of how a bridge is made with the beams going at angles, just to help with the strength of it. So I'm going to need to make sure this inner section just here is really sturdy. But obviously, the sturdier you make it, the more bricks you use, the heavier it gets. And this really is going to be such a part intensive and heavy build once we've got it done. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into the center section there and start working on the actual structure that's going to go through to the back engine. And here is the start of the structure, which is going to hold the circular part of the engine. I'll be building this into the main structure there. However, if I put a little bit of pressure on this here, you can see it starts to give a gap at the very top there. Now, I could plate this off along the top. I'm not sure whether or not that's actually going to work. I think it might be better to go over to a very similar technique to what I've done on the fuselage of the TANTIVE 4, and that's have some plates running longwise. I think that might give it that little bit more strength. Now, I've put these 9 long Technic beams in the middle here. That's helping to clip everything together, so that's giving it some very good strength on the actual build. I think about using this part just here. I think if I pop those on the support beams, I can then run some plates in the center of that, and that's going to give it all of the strength it needs to stop it from having any movement at all. As long as I can keep this bit nice and strong, that's the main thing. What I'll then do is worry about keeping it all in place inside the actual build itself. So let's start experimenting with those brackets, and yeah, we'll see how we get on. And here we have numerous plates all overlapping with a couple of tiles in between, just so that's perfectly fitting in between the 2 uprights of bricks there. So this isn't going anywhere, and hopefully now the fact that we've got the studs going in that direction as well is going to offer it the support that we need throughout the structure. Now all I need to do is put the opposite of these Technic beams here on the top, clip it all together, and that should give us a super sturdy structure for the engines. And there we have it all connected together. I've put a couple of extra plates on the top and bottom over the joins, and this has made it so strong. And I'm confident now that once we've attached it to the main structure, as long as we do a similarly good job to that, we won't have any trouble at all with this drooping once we've got all the build around the edges of it. And we started working on the support structure here. So this part here is what's going to hold the circular part of the engine on the end outside. And I thought I was on the right track here. However, I am a little bit concerned about whether or not there's enough strength in here. And I'm wondering if I need to double up on the Technic structure at the very bottom here, and then have some beams connecting the whole lot together just to keep this nice and firm. The centre bit here is absolutely fine. There's plenty of strength in there. It's just the connections between it. I've put these parts here, which are the L-shaped Technic bricks on, and that's enabled me to have cross beams going across as well as this way. I could connect the 2 there, but I don't think that's really going to do much, and there's not that many other connection points further around that I can do it to. So I think I might just restart the very base of this and have a centre beam going across, and that will enable me to connect that all together. But yeah, it's one of those things a little bit like the actual main fuselage itself, where I need to make sure that I get the structural side really sturdy before I start doing all of the exterior details on the actual shell of the ship. And there we have the centre structure all built in, and it's nice and strong. Really happy with the strength we've got inside of there. It has used up a lot of pieces, but it's well worthwhile adding them and getting that strength there. Now we have got some uprights in here which are helping with the strength. It's compressing everything together, and I am going to add a few more inside there as well, just to give it that little bit extra help. And on the back here, I'm going to attach a beam going at a 45-degree angle, and again, that's just to help force it up. It's not dropping at all, and I'm pretty confident it's not going to, even with all of the weight of the bricks on there once we put the details on. But yeah, happy with the strength we're getting into the build so far. Now here is our playset version. This engine part here, that black brick is the length of what that's going to be. From the upright just there to the end of there is from the grey plate to the end of that tile, and from the end of that grey tile there to the end is the rest of this. Now originally I thought this was too steep, however I triple checked the measurements and it does seem to be correct. And also I can wedge this part here in there, so it does look like I have got the right angle on there, and it's just my eyes deceiving me. Now it's a case of, how do I cover this now? Do I put snot bricks on the side here, plate it, and then tile it, or do I brick build it? And I'm thinking the snot bricks with the plates and tiles is probably the best way forward. I'm going to have all those studs exposed on the side, which will enable me to put a lot of greebling on there, a lot of details that you see on the TANTIVE. I think if I go for it brick built, it's going to be quite hard to get all of the details in there, or it could get fiddly. I might all of a sudden have a detail that goes at an angle and I've got a brick in the way. So yeah, I think the snot technique is possibly the best way forward. Now on this section here, again, do I brick build it or do I plate over it? These plates here are an option. I'm not that keen on using the bricks. as you can see with these three I've just placed on here, I wouldn't use these as they're the wrong angle, but any of these slopes go up, then you have a step up, step up, and so forth. Again, I don't really want all of that on there. The plate, when you rest it on top, you've got ugly gaps on there, so it's something I'm not that keen on. So I am thinking that the plated version is again going to be the best way forward. And here is the side of the engine all plated up. I just wanted to plate it just to give me an idea of how it's going to look, the size. With just a Technic frame, it's harder to visualise than when it's all plated over. Now, these are just the first plates I've come to, and the tiles are just purely to keep everything into place. It's going to be obviously a lot different to this once we're all finished. But this part here, it still looks a little bit out of proportion. This is probably about the second or third different height it's been. So I'm just going to get the plans and measure all of those dimensions once again, just to see if they are correct, as something doesn't look quite right at the moment. And the brain is fried. I have been measuring this, remeasuring it, and then measuring it again, and I'm coming up with different numbers every single time. So it has been, yeah, quite the challenge getting this all sorted. Something that should be straightforward. I'm making really hard work of it. And I think I've been lying to everybody about the length of this ship. And I think I'm going to have to go back and rewatch a couple of my videos to find out how I come up with some of the numbers. Now, when I started this build series, this was the picture that I said I was going to be using for my measurements. Well, there was a couple of times when I was trying to measure something and it was quite difficult to see which line was which. If I show you on here, some of these lines are very, very close together, as you'd expect. But yeah, it wasn't the easiest to measure on. So I went over to this picture here. Now, the docking bay here on this picture is 17 millimeters, and the whole length of the picture is 216. Now, we worked out that the docking bay here is 30 studs in width. So 17 millimeters equals 30 studs. So 216 millimeters would equate to 380 studs. Now, 380 studs is, I think, 7.9 or just over large grade base plates, which is only 3 meters, which is 9.84 foot. So it's not 11 foot. So I don't know where the extra length has come from in one of the other updates. So yeah, it's not going to be 11 foot. So apologies to everybody for lying to you. It's not that big. It's going to be that a little bit smaller. Still big though. Now, if I look at this picture here, the width of the docking bay is 10 millimeters and the overall length is 111.2 millimeters. So again, if we say that 10 millimeters equals 30 studs, that means the whole length of this is only 333 studs. So we're talking a whole 47 studs difference, which is a whole grade base plate. So we're now down to 2.63 meters in length for just over 8.5 foot. So already the measurements are really starting to get confusing, and yeah, we do need to stick to one picture. So going forward, we are going to be using just this one image here. We're going to do away with these ones here. As you can see, I started writing all the studs on here numerous times, but what I have now got are these ones just here. So I've blown the picture up and drawn the lines on the iPad. Now what I'm going to do is write next to each of these lines how big each gap is going to be. And it's going to save me keep remeasuring, because that's all I seem to be doing at the moment is remeasuring everything. And yeah, I'll come up with different numbers. So at least this way I can now have a final measurement on there. And hopefully it's going to make the job that little bit easier. Next up, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to have a look at how I'm going to go about making the circular part of the engine. So let's get some clips and brackets out and see what we can come up with. And there we have our circle, and it is spot on size wise, and it is using a whole load of these hinge plates here. And these are the plate version of the brick that we've used on our corridor, and I've made it so they're 3 studs wide as opposed to the 4 on the corridor, and that's just making it that little bit smaller and the correct size. So what I need to do now is work out how many of these hinges I actually need, and again, I'm praying that they are in Germany, as it's going to be so expensive otherwise. I want to have probably 3 of these rings along each engine. So the number we've got here, we'll count all these up, times by 3, then times by 11. That's how many we're going to need. I do like these hinge pieces. I do think they work out very well. And you can get these bricks here as well, which they have the connection on each end. So it enables you to do an even smaller circle. So this piece here might come in very handy for doing inside the engine as well, for getting a little bit more detail in there. So we have to keep that in mind as well. But it's nice to come up with a solution straight away. And I think we need to go back to the drawing board on the engine here, and it's all to do with this section just here. Now, this is the micro scale version of it, and you have the slope going up, and then you've got a flat section, then you've got the cylinder. And that's how I thought the engines were. That's how I've been visualising it. And when you look at this diagram here, this is more like the playset version. The slope goes up. It's then only just got a very small area which has got a load of greebling on, and then you have the cylinder at the back, and you've got these parts on the side here. So I think what I need to do is shrink that right back, and then this bit here is going to be longer. Now what that will mean is I'm going to need to build this in a lot further, because it's going to have just this part here connecting it now, so it's going to need a lot more support. So we're going to need to put more angles on here. Now, one other thing as well with our rings here, because they're 3 studs in width, is an odd studdage as well. So I think what I need to do is shrink this by 1 stud, and also this center section. That way I can build up off the top of this and actually clip it all together without having to use jumper plates. I'll probably actually reverse the studdage on here the same as the fuselage. So I've got the studs pointing down, so I can then attach the bottom studs up to it as well. And then I'll also have some arms coming out each side, so I can attach it on there, so this can't lose its shape on the actual build. These engines, as I said, are going to be gigantic, and we want to make sure that they are as strong as possible. So I think what we're going to do now, I'm just going to take the plates off of the side of this, remeasure everything again, and I've still got to just double check the height of this part as well, so I'll do that whilst I'm at it. And yeah, we'll check back in once we've got the revised engine design all built up. And it's proved a little bit more difficult than planning. When you're using these hinge pieces, trying to get the measurements exactly right is very, very difficult. We were using brackets initially to attach it on the side here, and we've now gone over to snot bricks. And I think that has just about made it work out how we needed to do so. Now, with this centre structure now, as you can see, it's a lot thinner. It's only 3 studs wide as opposed to the 8 there was previously. So we're now no longer needing to use the 8x6 Technic bricks or the 4x6. So that's good. That's cutting down the parts on there. However, we have got a 3rd row of the Technic bricks down the centre, so it's all give and take. And we've got these beams down the centre here, which is clipping it all together, so it can't split that way. Now this end part here, the circular part, it's quite difficult to get this looking exactly right, exactly central, but I think we have just about got there now. It may be a fraction of a plate out, but it's not noticeable to the naked eye. So next thing we need to do is modify the section that this mounts onto. We need to shrink that in length a little bit, and then we'll go about attaching this to the actual frame. And here we have attempt number 2 at the engine, and I think it's a lot better. It certainly feels like it's more proportionally correct to the images I've seen, and also the playset as well. So hopefully we have got it spot on this time around. Now, in regards to the side here, the angle is obviously the same as it was previously, but this is where the main difference is. As you can see, that's been shrunk right back, and then we've attached this on the outside. Now, I've only done that last moment just so you can get a good idea of what it's going to look like once it's done, but I do believe they are the correct dimensions for that. With the cylinders here, I was originally going to put 3 in, but I think I'm going to need to put a couple more in, so it's either going to be 4 or 5 all the way along there, just to help take the weight of it. Now, the center structure, the core of that has changed considerably. It's now only 3 studs wide on the actual brickwork, and then the support beams are on the outside as opposed to the inside, and they're there to stop it from flexing, and the brick there is to stop that popping off. And I'll put some more further down once I've got all of these support beams all in place. But it's quite nice having this a little bit smaller, as it means it's lighter. So that's the good thing. One thing I will need to do is try and reinforce this a little bit more. I don't think there's enough grip on this end here to stop it drooping down, but we will get that all sorted out when it comes to building all of the engines. But it's really nice to finally get the shape and size all corrected on here, and the new diagrams, they are certainly helping, as I've now got all the dimensions written down and I don't have to keep remeasuring everything. Anyway, that's all we have time for. I hope you've enjoyed this update. If you have, please remember to give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content on the channel. And if you know anybody else you think would be interested in building the TANTIVE in Lego, if you could share the channel with them, it'd be much appreciated. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.